I'm going to explain our database, who we can create, how we can do the first tables and the basics function in database using Microsoft SQL Server. But first, I want to share with you one important source for search information about the commands and the guide to create the database. So I recommend you to search in this website that is W3 Tools. And here when you write database commands, you can find this website. And here you have the basic commands for create a database, create a table, and use then insert data, update, and all of the functions that we need use in a database. So now I'm going to open my SQL server, my SQL. When we open SQL, yes, we will have these windows, and then we need to connect with our instance. And here we can see the different database. If you are just created your account, here you will have any of these database. This will be empty. In this case, I have created some database. But for create a new database, there are two ways to do. One is using query, a new query, and using a query. What is a query? A query is a language of programming. This language is called SQL or SQL, and also we have reserved words. For example, create database, or here when we use delete or everything insert, there are some specific word that is reserved, and this will help us to do the different commands for the software, do what we need to do. So we can use the commands here, the SQL, to create a database, or we can just go to database, click right, and new database. And here we need to choose the name. So we will call workshop DB. We can call DB database workshop 2. Because in the previous workshop I created one database called workshop. So here we will see just this new database was created. If you cannot see, probably you need to refresh here. And then when we click in the plus, they will expand the different folder that we have in this database. Before start, when we are talking about database, we need understand what is a database. Yes. Sometimes this, when we are talking about database, appears that it's something complex or difficult, but most of you are familiar with Excel. Yes. What is Excel? Is one sheet where you can store different information. We have the different tables, the columns and the rows, and where you store different information. And you can have different sheets. You can relate one sheet with other. Uh, we can store different information uh, organized by columns or rows. So this is one database. Yes, we can. In some companies, Excel is used as a database. So when we are talking about database, the idea is organize the information and store the information in a way organized. In this case that we are talking SQL Server, is a relation, is a structured database. Where structure, we need follow the 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 structure of the information. For example, we need to store in the column that we call name, we need to store name. In the column that we define that will be the age, we need to store the age. We cannot swap, we cannot mix the kind of data that we are using, and we need always follow the same structure. Yes, this is why SQL is a structured database. But basically, we can relate one database with Excel, so it will be easy to understand how this works. And in SQL, we have different tables. We will organize the information in tables. And when we are imagining or we are creating a database, we need to imagine which kind of information we need to store together and why this information should be together, and which information it's better that we have in a separate table. The typical example is the school, and when we have the table of students and the table of courses and the table for teachers or whatever. We need to understand why we use one table to store all of information about the students, and why we use another table for store the information about the course, or why we don't store everything mixed. We can do this. Yes, we could store what we want in just one table, but the problem of doing this is that when we need search information, or when we need to modify, it will be hard and more in terms of efficiency of the resource, the computer that needs search. It will be heavy, and maybe it don't will be possible to find some information. So this is why we start, for example, all of the information about the students in one table, and then in other table the information about the course. Because, for example, we will have one students, and the students don't will be enrolled just in one course. The students will be enrolled in 10, 15 courses, and for example, when the students pass this course, we will need delete the information of the students, or for example, when we create a new enrollment, the new list of students that was enrolled in the same subject, we need change. We will need delete the information of the old student to add the new. But if we do this, for example, if we have just one table for the course, and in this table we register the name of the students and all of the information about the students, then in the next term, we will need delete all of the information, but if we need enroll again the old student in a new subject, we need duplicate again and search all of the information about the student again in another table. So this is not practically, and it's messy, and it's not efficient. So this is why we create one table student, one table course, and then we just link the ID of the students that is enrolled in the course. And this is easy to search and modify information. So this is why we use tables, and the idea to separate the information. And there, in different process, we need understand who we can separate the information and which information will be useful in one table and which information in the other table. So before you create the structure of your database, you need to understand the process, you need to understand how the system works. For example, in the case of the school, so we have students, we have courses, so we need identify the identities, we need to identify uh, the possible tables or that will store the same information. Okay, to create one table, again we can use a query to create a table, or we can do here, right click, new table, and you can see here column name, data type, and if allow nulls or not. Or if we go here, internet, database, let's search create table. Yeah. Here we can see the syntax for create a new table. Yes, we need to use the word create table, and then we will choose the name of the table, the name of the column, and the data type of the column. Yeah, here we have one example. Create table person ID. It will be int, integer, last name, first name, city, etc. Also here in database, it's important to understand what is the data type. Yes. Let's start creating a table that we will call student. So let's start with the ID student. Yeah. And then we need to choose the data type. When we are talking the data type, we need to understand which kind of data we store in this column. In this case, ID student. ID could be bar chart, so could be a combination of numbers and letters, or could be just a number. But when we look in SQL Server, we have a lot of data types. We have here begin, binary, bit, chart, date, data time, decimal, float, geography, geometry, image, int, that is integer, money. So there are a lot of different kind of data that we can use for the columns. This is very important that you search and understand what is the data type and which kind of data will be appropriate for each column. I mentioned one example when I was working creating a database, um, and the customer requests that we use as an ID of the table, in our table, one ID with 9 characters, but all of our ID needs start with the number 9. And when I created the data type, I select the type of integer, but integer have the limitation that you can store less. You cannot store numbers with 9 characters, nine space, and start with number 9. So then I need to redo and adapt my database because the data type that I have chosen was wrong. So here in this website, you can see the data types, chart, the size, bar chart, binary, yes, long text, medium text. And if you see here int size, you can store numbers from minus to 1, everything, or you can use from 0 to this number that is maximum 4 to 9. So I cannot use in for store one ID that start with number 9 and have 8 numbers more. Yes, we have 2, 3, 4. So I need to change my database and choose, I think I use big int, that in this case, yes, we can use and have more quantity of numbers that we can use. So this is the first part. Understand the data type, what is in, what is binary, the difference between bar chart or just chart. So when we need, for example, in chart, I can store from 0 to 155. But if I use bar chart, I can use more string length, so I can store more letters. Okay, so for this example, we can use integer ID as an integer. And the next column, when we are creating the data, the table, is important that we understand if this column should be null or not. What is this? Can I have one student without ID? If the answer is no, because all of students must have an ID, I need choose here to don't allow nulls. So in this case, we cannot click in this uh, section. Then let's create another column, for example, name. When we create a name, the name of student could be any bar chart that it will be strings, so letters. And again, I cannot have students without nulls without name. So date of birth. Yeah. Let's store, for example, the date that the students born. And we can use date and address. And in this case, I'm going to allow nulls because, for example, the student cannot provide the address. So this is one example, and we need to understand if we can allow this or not. Once we define all of the columns that we will have in our uh, in our table, then we can choose the primary key. In this case, we will set student ID as a primary key. So we can click here. And we can choose set as a primary key or another functions. The primary key will be one column that we choose. In this column, we cannot have duplicate information. For example, we can have two students with the same name or with the same last name, but we cannot have two students with the same ID. So this is why in all of most tables, we will use primary key to be sure that when we store one information, this information is unique, and when we search in the table, we don't have two results for the same information. For example, if I'm searching for one student, if I write the ID, I cannot have two different names for the same ID. So this is why we use IDs. Okay, once we write all of the columns that we will create, we need to save this table, and we name this table student, for example. Yeah. And now if I need to refresh here, and when I'm going here in tables and I expand this folder, I will see here the table that we just created that is called student. Now, to see what is stored in this table, I need click right and select top. Yeah, I will deselect, and I can see that in this table don't have any information. It's empty. This table don't have any values. So now I need to store information. To store information into a table, to chart the information, I need to use the insert. Let's go here in the website. Let's search for insert. Yes. To insert data into the table, I need to use this command. Insert into table insert into, and the values. So I can use this query, the same query, or I can create a new query. Let's do here. Insert into. Here I need to write the name of my table. In this case is student. Yes. And then I need to specify the columns. So I have ID student, name, date of birth, and address. Yeah. Insert into, then I need to write values. And now I'm going to insert the values that I like to insert. For example, the ID 111, name, Romina. And when we are inserting date into the table, we need to remember which kind of date is each column. For example, ID student, we define it as an integer, so it will be a number. Name is a string, so when we insert a string, we need to use quotes to tell to SQL that this date is a string. Date of birth, we need to write and then we have address. Castle. Yeah. So this is the instruction to insert data into our table. We need to select this line of code and click here in execute. Yes. And we can see here one row was affected. So this is because I have inserted this data. Now, if I click here, select and execute again, now I can see that this information was stored into my table, ID, name, and date of birth. And now, if I'm trying to insert again the same information, let's look what's happened. As I have defined ID as a primary key, if I'm trying to insert the same ID again in the table, I will get this error that tells us that the primary key, yes, cannot be inserted duplicate. If I want to insert another student called Romina, I need to modify the ID, the primary key. So now if I execute, it will inserted again. And now I can see that there are two students called Romina, but have different IDs. For example, if I change the student, but I don't change the ID, I will have again the error because this ID already exists in the table. So I need to create a new. And now if I select here, I will have these 3 students in this table. Yes. So this is the instruction to insert information into a table. Then if I want to update or delete the information, we can follow here, update. Yes. Here you can have an example to update the information or delete. Yeah, we need to use the word delete from the table name are, for example, where ID equal to 111. So this is the different function that we can do. But now let's quickly create another table, and I want to explain who we can create a foreign key and the relationship between tables. Let's create a ID course. And here I'm going to create ID student. I like to follow the same. If, for example, if I write here in lower letters, in the two tables follow the same nomenclature. Course description. Okay, let's create this table. And in this table, ID course will be a primary key. So I cannot have two courses with the same ID. Courses. Okay. So now let's refresh our database. And when we expand here in tables, you can see that we have two tables, courses and students. Student in this case. I mentioned that we have in both tables we created a primary key. So in the table course we have ID course as a primary key, and in the table student we have ID student as a primary key. Now let's talk about the foreign key. This key is to relate two tables. If you see here in course, I have created one column that also is called ID student. ID student is my primary key in the table student. But now I want to make a relationship between this table, and this is why also in course I linked or I created this column called ID student. To do this relationship in SQL, we have here database diagram. So let's create a database diagram. So we need to select these two tables, add, and here we can click in student ID and we can connect with course. So here, the primary key in the table student ID, will be a foreign key in the table course. When we click OK, you can see here now these two tables are related. Yes, there are a relationship between these two tables. And this is how you can create the diagram, the database diagram in SQL, in SQL. Okay, now let's try to insert into courses, say into courses, values, yes. Insert into the table called courses. Into the table courses, let's insert these values. Oh, sorry. Yeah. Now we need first we need save. Okay, we need to save this diagram first to create the database, the relationship. Sorry. So once we save our database diagram, yeah, we refresh here. Database diagram. We have created a diagram, and now if I try to insert okay, this is the table courses. Okay. I need to create this again, sorry. When I save, I didn't save. Yeah, we need to save. Okay, I need to. Let's delete the information. Delete. Well, what I'm doing now is I'm going to delete these two data that I have inserted in this table courses. Yes. So to create a relationship between these two tables, yeah, I use delete here. So, okay. So with this line of command, we can delete information. So now if you see into this table is completely empty. Now let's create again the diagram. To create the diagram, it's better when the tables are empty. Let's save. Sure. Mm, Okay. Okay. Now I have saved the diagram. Yes, you can see here the diagram, and was created the relationship between the two tables, between course and student. Now, if I'm trying to insert these dates, the course ID 112 and the student ID 134, when I run this line of code, I execute and I get this information. The insert statement conflicted with the foreign key because in course students, there is conflict with database in student column. Why? Because when I come here to my table student, yes, in the table student, I have just 3 records with the ID number 111, 112, and 113. If I'm trying to insert in the table course one student that doesn't exist in the table students, I will get this error. But now if I try to insert one valid student that is already created in the other table, when I execute, of course, in my table course, it will be created, yes, the student 111, and in the course ID 112. And now let's look what's happened if I try to delete the student here. When student one, when I delete ID student. Yes. When I want to delete something, I need to write the name of the table and the condition where ID student equal a 111. So I will try to delete this first student. So in this case, when I delete the student from this table, will be a conflict between these two tables. So I need to do the delete in both tables because these tables are related. So this is the advantages when we are using primary and foreign key, because if I have created the students and I have make the relation with another table, maybe if I delete from this table but I don't delete from the other table, it will be create a conflict, because when I try to search relate again the student from the course with the students, and if this student doesn't exist more in the table students, it will be a problem. So this is why when I'm trying to delete from the table students, I will get this error because these two tables are related. So uh, we need delete from both. Yes, from both tables. So this is the reason why we use the foreign keys. So let's do a rapid review. We create a database called workshop. Yes. Then we create two tables. We expand here. We create two tables. The table called student and the table called courses. And then we create the database diagram. Yes. When we make the relationship between these two tables using the foreign key, and in the table student, we create a primary key called student ID, and in the table courses, we use the ID course as a primary key. And these two tables are related for the foreign key, that is ID student, and we see how we can insert information into the table and how we can delete information, and also we can update the information. For example, if let's assume that the date of birth is wrong or the city is wrong, so we can update. And one thing more is, for example, in this case I write insert into courses, and here I didn't specify the name of the columns. Why? Because I'm inserting information in all of columns. But for example, if I want to insert less information, for example, I don't have I don't want to write nothing in the description. Uh, Here, yes, I need write maybe the course. So I will I'm a student, course name. Yeah. And in this case, when I execute and then when I select, you can see that there are one row here, one column that is right null. Null means that is no value. So this is because when we created the table, we allow null in this column. So when you are designing your database, you need to think and understand if it's possible that in this column we have null or not. In this case, it's just the description, so I can avoid and don't complete this information, and it will be okay. But for example, I cannot provide the course name. Yes, I cannot store the information about one course that doesn't have a name. So this is the importance of you allow nulls or not when we create a table. So I think this is the most important points of database, how we can create the database, create a table, make the relationship, create the foreign and primary key, insert, update, delete. So I hope that this video is helpful for you. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email and we can discuss. I can try to help you. Thank you and see you later.